Well, obviously, we're at a very difficult, risky moment where we seem to be drifting back towards war with all of the unpredictability, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, with oil prices which are going down, potentially going back up, economic problems and inflation, difficulties with fertilizer, all of those kind of scenarios that we were dealing with, Jamie, just a couple of weeks ago coming back. That's not a scenario which I think anybody in the NATO countries, including the United States itself, where the war is highly unpopular, particularly want to see. On the other hand, although President Trump has used some very strong rhetoric, of course, in Ankara, condemning Iran and saying the ceasefire is over and the memorandum of understanding is dead, we know that he has every incentive politically to want this war to end, to want to get into nuclear negotiations with Iran, to want to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. So maybe, despite the intensity of the US strikes overnight, maybe, in a couple of days' time, things will calm down and Tehran and Washington will go back to talking to each other.
You're a NATO man of many years' experience. President Trump ordering the United States to cut off trade with Spain, calling it a terrible partner in NATO. What should we make of this?
Well, there are some laggards, Jamie, quite frankly, in NATO when it comes to defence spending and meeting that 5% of GDP target, which is so dear to President Trump. Spain is not the only one. In fact, Spain is doing better at 2%, just slightly over of GDP, than countries like Albania or the Czech Republic or Slovenia, also NATO members, Jamie, but which are spending even less. The other thing is, if we look at things in the round, Spain recently did send a Patriot air defence battery to Turkey to protect Turkey, where the summit is being held, at a time when it was being threatened by Iran. The Spanish this week have agreed to provide some more money to Ukraine to buy weapons. So, the Spanish would argue that maybe they're not the most enthusiastic ally, but they're certainly not the worst, and that they are doing things to show their solidarity with the rest of the alliance. But, of course, imposing trade sanctions on Spain alone, an EU member state, is not going to be easy, Jamie, because, of course, that's a matter for the EU here in Brussels, and the European Union will no doubt have its word to say on that to Washington.
Trump says he's not happy with NATO, clearly, yet Mark Rutte, the NATO boss, reconfirms the country's commitment to the NATO alliance. I mean, to what extent, realistically, can NATO members go it alone if they end up finding themselves without America's support?
Well, yes, indeed. And let's look at the NATO summit declaration when it's published. I know that this is not maybe the most fascinating topic for the press, but if the United States officially in the NATO communique says that its commitment to the defence of Europe is ironclad, and that's the language in the text, then, of course, that must mean something. And Trump has given his word on that ironclad security guarantee in the past. But we do also see, Jamie, at this summit in Ankara, increasing signs that Europe is getting its act together and preparing for a future, not without the US in Europe, but with the US doing far less in NATO. For example, you've seen all of these defence deals that Europeans and Canadians have been signing. You've been seeing the increasing European defence budgets. You've been seeing Europeans already backfilling with frigates and with aircraft, with drones, those capabilities that the US has said it's going to be withdrawing from NATO. So I think you see in Ankara, yes, the Europeans trying to placate Trump, to please him, to keep as much US in NATO as they can, but at the same time, you're also seeing the emergence of this NATO 3.0, this new alliance, where the Europeans are taking an insurance policy on a non-American and European defence future.